Here we go. Let's just make sure we're hitting the YouTube server, and we are. We are live. So, welcome to another day of live Learn from the Pros. My name is Jason Reynolds, as seen in my, right below my beautiful face. Um, and my guest today is my friend Ash. Ash, how you doing, my friend?
I'm great, man. How you doing, Jason?
Good, hanging in there. I know for everybody, these are unprecedented times. For those of us in this industry, well, not just. Definitely don't want to seem like we're insensitive to everybody who's facing a struggle right now, but our industry is really taking a beating on this one for sure.
Oh yeah, man. First one down, last one to come up, right?
Right, right, for sure.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get into it, but definitely I want everybody who is watching to know just a few small housekeeping matters. We're gonna try and take as many questions as we can. So drop it in the comments if you got questions. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel, share it. We're trying to bring as much value and content to the world as we can in these times so that folks can learn. And so we want to continue doing this. So share it with your friends. Also, check out my Patreon site, patreon.com/Jason Reynolds Pro Audio. Um, to get some training. We're doing some training for audio engineers, and we have Ash coming to do a masterclass for us. Later on, we're gonna do a masterclass of stage management and production management, tour management. We're gonna get a panel of people together for that, so we're pretty excited about that one. But today, we get to hear a little bit about Ash's journey in the industry and talk to him a little bit about what he's been up to lately, and yeah, hopefully I know you guys are going to learn a lot because Ash is incredibly experienced, top guy in the field, and definitely one of my favorite stage managers to work with. So yeah, today's going to be amazing. Big up to everybody watching, all the Miami crew. Trinidad is in the house, Viran is in the house, John da Costa Orlando is in the house, Nigel Lynn is in the house. David is awake today. Um, David actually says, he says, Ash, David says, we're going to learn tons today, tons. That's an inside joke that we may let some people on later on, but we'll see how far we get into the KFS conversation. And if we're allowed to talk about some stories from that experience, but we're gonna have fun
Quite a
nevertheless. So
bit, sure.
yeah, I mean, we've got probably about an hour worth of Kaya Fest stories. So I'm sure if we get into that, we won't be short. We'll be short on time. But tell everybody like what you do now. Introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Well, not right now because we're sitting at home for a while. But before coronavirus struck, what were you up to, and what do you do, and
Yeah,
who you've worked with, and all that stuff?
I was literally, I mean, just like everyone, we had a lot of bookings down, and it's kind of like the domino effect. Everything kind of fell off, but I had, I mean, festivals booked to, music cruise productions booked for, I was all stage managing all these. Couple of them I was production manager. Um, you know, couple artists I started working with, like Flying Lotus. We're about to literally leave the next day to Mexico City, do a headline show, and that fell off. And jazz cruise thing. It's so festivals like Hangout Fest supposed to happen right now,
Right.
and uh, yeah, man, it was festivals and gigs booked all the way almost till the next year, middle of next year. So it's some things are still holding, but this whole year is gone. Besides that, I own my own company, providing techs and stagehands and so forth. So obviously, it fell all the way down. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah, and I mean, like, it's crazy. You mentioned Hangout Fest, and we'll get into that. That's actually one of my favorite festivals. We played that festival. I don't know what was it? Maybe 2 years ago. Was it two? No, 3 years ago now. Because 2 years ago was 2018. I was out with Stephen Marley that year. But I think 2017 is when we played the main stage with Shaggy. That was fun. The same day as Mumford and Sons. But yeah. So you're a stage manager. That's kind of your main gig. So I guess we'll open up with this question that John DaCosta asked, which is a good question to kind of open up. If you can define the difference for people between a traditional theatrical stage manager versus what you do in concert touring.
Yeah, quite a big difference actually. And I do both. I do theater and concert stage managing. Theater, it's a little bit more very detailed as far as you are controlling the timeline of the show. You're doing the
Right.
call. It's like 20-second out. Performer enters. You're literally like calling the show from start to finish. Concert is a more physically active situation. A lot of that you plan ahead of time. I mean, theater you plan ahead of time too, but I think concerts where dealing with all the vendors and so forth, you're doing all the pre-planning stages. So on the day of show is a lot of physical execution, and you depend on the other team members to execute a lot of that. So you're working more together instead of one person on a headset calling things and they're just waiting on you. Concerts,
Right.
it's you have a lot of moving parts at the same time, a little more action based. You actually step out on stage. A lot of theaters you don't even see anybody. It's just the
Right.
performance.
Right.
So yeah, I mean that's the big thing.
That's cool, man. So how'd you get into the industry? Like how'd you get your start? Did you always know that you kind of wanted to work in this industry? Maybe you can talk a little bit about your background too, like growing up.
Yeah. Originally, I mean, started in New York in a way of being a musician, um, and just touring as a drummer actually, and then but I kind of find myself kind of hanging out with the crew and really loving what they do and appreciate what they do to put on these shows. And when I got to Florida, um, I was actually booking bands as a kind of a promoter, I guess. Kind of discovering music, discovering artists, and booking them for certain venues. And one of the venues is a small national music venue, about 650 cap, over in Fort Lauderdale, and hanging out there a lot, and just helping out artists and helping out production just by doing it, just being there and love of it.
Hmm.
And the owner just say, "Hey man, why don't you? I really need a stage manager. You actually remember what to do here. You're joining us." So I joined there, but I didn't know what really a stage manager was doing. I just knew how to get the show going. It's like this is what they needed. I knew a lot of backline, immediately, so helped the artists out and get the show started and ended on time. But realized I was actually stage managing. But through the years, I realized that as a stage manager, you pretty much have to know everything. Meaning, um, like with the engineers, I have a little concept of what's happening on the audio side, lighting side, video, and so forth, backline. So I started learning from my engineers and the crew that was working. I started like piggyback with them and really learning more about the stage 100% from start to finish.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
yeah, then getting into advancing, learning from the promoters and so forth, with AEG actually at that time, learning how to advance the show correctly. Um, you know, when I took reign of it, I think I was the only guy actually reading a writer from front to back, learning a little detailed. So when I actually get on a phone call with a artist production, they were like, I answered every single question they had, and they were like, "All right, we're good to go." That like advancing became easier and easier. Just
Right.
learning so every aspect. Once I got into the festival field, it was a little bit more. I left the venue because I wanted more. Like I wanted to do the arenas. There's a whole
Right.
different festivals. Bonnaroo was my focus. So I got to Bonnaroo as a stage manager within 2 years of that.
That's
So
amazing, man.
yeah, man, it's just hard work, man. It's just
Yeah.
really love it and education, which you are providing
Hmm.
to crews as well. So just learning your skill and learning everything possible at that stage. Now I get with the structures and rigors and find out how the stage is designed to from the ground up. So
Right.
just learning everything about it.
And the cool thing for me is that sometimes for younger people who are trying to get into this industry, who break into this industry, they see the glamour of maybe the guy who's mixing the show, or the guy who is operating the lighting console or operating the video server, and they don't necessarily really understand that there are so many more careers and positions that are equally as rewarding and equally as important, if not more important, to the general success of a show. And obviously, as we get into like the Kaya Fest situation, how important, I mean, anytime I talk about Kaya Fest, we can't mention the success of Kaya Fest without mentioning you being a crucial and integral part of that. So I think that's such a good lesson, for people to learn, that maybe you don't have the skill set right away of being able to go and mix a show, but falling in love with another side of the industry, another part of making a show successful is equally as gratifying, right?
Oh yeah, that's correct. I always get approached by stagehands, a lot. Hey man, how do I get into this? I said, my question to them is, what do you love? What do you love to do? Because this industry has every single trade,
Right.
literally everything. Carpenter, seamstress, electrician. I mean, all audio, everything, right? So I just asked them, what do you love to do? And just focus on that. Stage manager, as personally myself, I like a lot of it. So I just knew how to communicate, which was one of the literally the top thing there is to be able to communicate 100% with everything, artists, all the different personalities, to crew. Again, all the different personalities with that, right? And
Right.
then, having the trust, especially in the rock and roll world, having the trust to have your crew execute your plans for the day. I like to
Right.
do little things. I like to be very detailed. Yeah, probably annoying sometimes, but when
Hmm.
it comes to showtime, it's action, man. It's get that, Reds come to me, Ash, I need this band in 10 minutes. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, all right, let's do this. So everyone works on the plan, get the moving parts going, so you guys could do your job correctly.
Right. And so you talked about communication, and John DeCosta, who's very active with questions at right off the bat.
It's on.
John was one of my guests, but is the one of the premier lighting designers, video directors, you name it, in the industry today. And obviously, being from the Caribbean, I take pride in my fellow techs and touring personnel that are doing big things. So I always like to big up John for sure. And obviously this question is really really timely with this topic, because you talk about having good communication skills, and Lord knows I've met some stage managers who didn't have good communication skills, and the day was, yeah, let's forget about those days. But what John asked, what are the top 5 things that make a good stage manager in your opinion?
Uh, be able to operate under pressure. The stress level. There's a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you gotta be able to be calm. And address the situation. There's a solution to everything. That's how I come to it. So you really just gotta sometimes take a step back and look at it as a whole, right?
Right.
And so yeah, the stress level, the communication. Of course, we're always going to talk about that, because if you can't communicate correctly, it's not gonna happen. Uh,
Absolutely.
Education too, because of this is where advancing comes into play, and learning what's happening completely with your show,
Mm-hmm.
um, artists and on the production and everything. You got to be able to follow up with your advancing. You have situations where artists come to you, or production, and I say production managers come to you, trying to throw a little extra stuff in there, right? So you have to be, educate yourself what's happening and what they're allowed to do, and so forth, and what we're providing, what we agreed upon. That also leads into um, not necessarily being aggressive, but like also just confidence of okay, this is what I know we can do. Let's do this. You got to be able to not be scared. It kind of all ties in. Stress, communicate, everything. Like just kind of You got to be able to execute something and confidence, right?
Right.
Uh, and just the knowledge kind of go. It all kind of links together. If you know, so the knowledge of knowing what's happening in production world. So knowing how to call out, maybe a mic is missing, and walk up to the engineer, be like, can be like, hey, that mic is missing. I'd be like, hey, man, it doesn't have a 91 in the kick, or the 52 is messed up, or lighting, everything. It seems like there's a DMX line out. Is be able to call certain things, kind of have that knowledge of what's happening on stage.
Right.
Um, I lost count on the five there. Am I
No,
missing it?
keep going. We can go. I mean, all of these things are relevant, right? So like, I
Yeah.
mean, the skills needed to get to, especially on a larger festival. Um, and you touched on being calm and not panicking. So let me, before Ver gets in here and talks about how I panic on festivals, let me just throw that out there, that having you as a calm head is very important, because I am not that way. I am not like, when I get really annoyed really easily with artists and musicians.
I had
Um,
you down actually.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I was like,
Like,
we
so
got.
having you in between me and the artists and musicians that I'm getting really annoyed with is actually very, very handy on a festival, because you're like the filter that I don't have, right? So like when I'm yelling at people, I remember with Kayafest, I think it was, oh yeah, David O. We were wondering where they were, and security at the back was holding them up. Like the security guard, I don't know, for whatever reason, wouldn't let them in, and we were now beyond the time that they were supposed to be there to set up, and I don't, the words that I was yelling are not sufficient, are not allowed on a family program. But yeah, I was not happy, and I think that's a very good example of having you being there to sort of be that calming influence. I talk a lot about to when I'm training young monitor engineers about being able to maintain the temperature of your stage, not physical temperature, but just when you're dealing with different attitudes, and being able to keep it to a workable temperature and not allowing things to boil over, if you will. So talk a little bit about that, and like your experience and some of the things that you do to make sure that nobody's getting flustered, because when you got a tight changeover, especially on a big festival, like for me as a monitor engineer, and I know I need my band on and in place in a certain amount of time to make sure it leaves me enough time for a line check. Especially when I'm working, it's a new stage manager, never worked with them. If I walk onto a festival and you're there, I'm like, yeah, whatever, we'll be fine. But when it's a new stage manager, we never work together, I'm on edge, my front of house guy's on edge, my artist wants to make sure we execute that changeover timely. So it's easy for emotions and stuff to boil over. How do you maintain that temperature as the stage manager to make sure that things sort of stay in check?
Yeah, so with me, again, I'm bouncing with the different departments to go in. I check on artists. If it's a bigger festival, we'll use that as example. You have artist relations and liaisons to get the artists there on time. I'm communicating with them, learning all this. The temperature stuff you got to recognize if the department is getting a little flustered, um, jump in. No white glover. Like help if my patch guys look like he's a little flustered. I'll just like, hey man, what can I help you with? What do you got? Like, let me grab some XLRs for you. Let me get this going for you. Let's we are in a rush, but you got help. You're not by yourself. It's a teamwork situation. That kind of relieves a little of that and that calmness. If there's an artist having an issue, or I'll go straight to their team, be like, hey man, we're not going to get anywhere. Let's calm down. Let's address the issue. Let's keep this moving in a positive way. If I need to pull an artist off to fix a technical issue, if they're just sitting there, why is this not working? Whatever, yeah, address them. Get them, calm that down. Fix the situation. That goes with every department. If there's a audio issue, lighting issue, whatever it is, be able to jump in or provide another team member to help out we're all there as teamwork. That's what the big thing that helps. Like Caiaphas, I think we had an amazing team. Um, everybody on that festival, the communication that went into it before the festival, um, even with a lot of a lot throw into our days there, but ultimately our team and the teamwork that we put together helped that festival like knocked out.
Yeah.
The first band is always a little kind of training situation, sometimes, but I think the execution when everybody felt comfortable in their role, everyone jumped in, everyone helped out. If our patch guy was having, little issues, okay, we threw an extra guy on him, help him out. Every little thing. I think teamwork had a big thing to do with that.
Right. And since we're on the subject of Kaya Fest, and there's questions coming in that I'm gonna kind of intersperse throughout our conversation because they're pertinent to what we're talking about.
Mhm.
Let me paint the picture for those watching the Kaya Fest picture. So, going into Kaya Fest, Vera and I were on tour together. So we're on an acoustic tour. But I mean, we started to talk about Kaya Fest production from the year before. Like we've had, I mean, every night when we got into our bunk, we'd be having conversations. Vera was in the bunk right above mine, so we were having conversations continuously right throughout 2018 about how we were going to approach Kaya Fest. And so when I talk to people about being prepared, like preparation being the foundation to making a festival successful, like we had at one point, I think my wife said to me that you talk to Veer more than you talk to me, which was actually true. Like it wasn't even, she wasn't just saying, like it was true, right? So I mean, like, so let's start there. As we paint the Kaya Fest picture, we can talk in and out of how that kind of went, because so just so that everybody understands, Kaya Fest is a little bit unique in terms of how it runs. Like at least with Hangout Festival, like Hangout Festival is the same in the sense that from the time doors open at Hangout, it's headliners. Like there's no filler spots. Like the festival is chock full of headline acts from the time doors open. But at least with Hangout, you got two stages. So it's bouncing back and forth from main stage to B stage back to main stage. So you got time in between to get, you got at least an hour sometimes to do a changeover at Hangout if you're on the main stage, because the B stage is going, and B stage being like it's the same size stage. It's essentially a copy of the quote unquote main stage. So, but with Kaya Fest, it's one stage. Like there's no B stage. There's no. So you're doing changeovers between headliners in 20 minutes and with everybody watching. Like
Right.
people don't understand the added pressure of 12,000 people staring at you, going, how long are they gonna take? Because the crowd just wants to hear the next band. They don't understand this whole process of what's going on stage. As far as they're concerned, we're just in the way. So you have these like 12,000 pairs of eyes, just like, how long is this gonna take? Right? So let's talk about the preparation a little bit. If you can bring people back to what was that like once you kind of came into the picture, and now Vera and I had to sort of take everything that was in our brain, and Nesta, because Nesta did the visual side of the design, and now we had to take all that and sort of communicate it to you. Thankfully, you speak whatever language that goes on in our brain. But talk a little bit about preparation and what that normally looks like, specifically for a festival like Kaya Fest.
Right. So, yeah, most of the big festivals actually have a production manager, then you have a stage manager and so forth, designer and so on. And production manager tends to advance a lot of the shows and get every details of production. Then hands it over to a stage manager. Here's the information that we have that we came about, right? And then kind of go with that. Um, so with you guys, you did that. You and Veer came up with the plan. and production side of, yeah, we already knew what consoles, what mics, what a the patch list was going to look like, what production we're going to have, the timing, execution. We didn't have that much time on changeovers, but you had a plan. We had a plan how to execute those stuff was basically preemptive.
Hmm.
We had having we had a space issue right on that stage. We couldn't put as much of the risers we ultimately wanted, but we definitely had extra risers to be able to plan for the next act and the next act. So you had to be a step ahead, right? But yeah, when I came into it, you guys had a lot of that information for me, which was excellent. Some festivals like like Rolling Loud. I do Rolling Loud, and we have a production manager, but I do all the advancing. I'm the one collecting all the hey, I need the video specs, I need the lighting specs, the audio specs. So these are information you guys already had for me,
Hmm.
and that's how I pretty much feed myself the information. I have an ultimate understanding of what we have going on stage from load in, setting up, knowing what's going in, timely process with that. And then with the changeovers and so forth, you also we had the extra gear, we made the extra planning, you had extra mics. I asked those questions. Hey, how many mic packages do we have? Okay, and you guys laid it out. This is what we had. This is the extra package. Um, so everything was communicated very well from you from the get go, going right into it.
Right.
Uh,
And I mean, in terms of what people are thinking about tools and stuff, Google Drive is free.
oh
It's funny some of the emails I send, right? Like when people are like when I'm advancing festivals, because in my touring life I advance for Shaggy, and sometimes I have to send emails to people going, "Have you ever heard of like Google Drive?" Because it's like yeah, it's such a handy tool to be able to keep things accessible and stored in one place, because that's important as you go through the process, being able to not just have access to the information easily, but the latest information as well. So whenever David would go in and update a patch sheet, up to almost a few days before, some of the artists were coming back with, okay, we're not bringing this keyboard player. I think David O changed his band like
oh yeah,
days before. So having access to and at that point you're trying your best to accommodate these artists as well, right? And sometimes it's circumstances beyond their control.
right.
I think the composers were to play, but they weren't able to, some visa issues and stuff, so they had to hire a band locally. At that point, you got to roll with it. You can't just be like, what are you going to tell the artist he can't play the show? Because you know what I mean. So
Yeah,
having access to that most recent information is so crucial.
right. I think in that instance too, like yeah, we had those new artists that walked in, and maybe the gear is not what they're used to, but it was advanced for the real
Right.
artists in there. And they came in, oh, we need this, we need that. That's when I came in. You're starting to fluster backline guys, right?
Right.
They're like, what are you talking about? So yeah, I'll approach and be like, hey man, this is what's advanced. Like, this is what the gear is. You know what? I'll give you some power over here. Keyboarders, jump on, learn the gear. Let's
Right.
see what
Right.
we do, make it happen. But we try to, yeah, we 100%. We try to make sure they're happy, but I also got to let them know that we kind of have to work together on this. If
Right.
it's not a thing this is the situation, we understand it. Here's our solution. Can we work together? Let's make this happen. So that comes with the communication factor and that calmness again. To work with artists and personalities and
Right.
help the situation out.
So I think this would be a good point to kind of shout out the team from KFS, and for those watching, they might wonder who and was involved. So as I mentioned, you have Nesta Garrick, who was also my guest previously on the program. He was the creative designer and creative director of the entire festival, but also the lighting designer and dealing with video. We had Veer was production manager. I was assistant production manager for the festival, and then obviously we did double duty. So when the Marley Brothers performed, I was on monitors. Veer was on front of house. I was also the festival monitor engineer. Most of the artists had their own monitor engineer, so it's not like I was standing at the monitor console all day. My A2 was Akash Ramjug from Trinidad by way of New York, I guess, was my A2, and A3, I guess if you can call it, that's VRAN, was helping me out at monitors, and I also had a lot of help from Dean Pond at on stage as well, and then Davin was audio crew chief and patch lead, and he was assisted by Ricardo Budai, again from Trinidad by way of Miami. Um, and where do we? And then you had a crew of people. A lot of local stagehands were a part of your crew. And then for backline, we had the great Jonas Production Slice, one of the best there is on backline, man. And when Slice is on the case, I don't worry about anything. Like I'm like, yeah, backline. I don't even think about backline. Leading up to the day, like he advances that stuff. I don't think about backline ever, like because I know it's so well taken care of. So and I think that for the most part was our crew. If I'm forgetting anybody, but yeah, definitely an incredible crew of people. Just things that I didn't have to worry about, like Mike's having new batteries. Viran was just on the case with that all day. Radios being charged. Rish, yeah, almost forgot Rish. Rish from Orlando. He was a big part of that production crew as well. So yeah, shout out to that team. But we talked about the space issue and having limited space, so we could only set up two bands off stage, right? Like we only had enough space for like six to seven risers off stage. So literally, while one band was on stage playing, we could only do two at a time. We didn't have a whole lot of space to be able to set up a whole bunch of people in advance. So what we did was we set up a schedule for the band's call time for their crew to arrive for setup, and you were that first point of contact. Like when they got there, they checked in with you. So walk me through that process now. What happens when so and so shows up and says, "Hey, I am so and so from
Right.
Protege's crew," for example?
There's one other aspect I want to throw in, since we're thanking the full crew, because I have to respect of the Wranglers as well, because I'm
Yeah, absolutely.
communication with them ahead of time. Hey, I had a meeting with them. Say, I need to know when they arrive on site. I need to, I will be calling you. Like, okay, their call time is coming up. Where is this person? So, I'm stressing them out. A lot of it's, I want to make sure our timing is correct. So that way, when, you know, you guys are coming to me, hey, where's this artist? I don't want that. I don't want that question. I want
Right,
to make like, all right, they're here. Or if there's an issue, we're addressing it ahead of time. If we need to flip flop an artist or do some kind of situation, if it comes to that, we know about it. So I like to thank our wranglers as well. But yeah, they
yeah,
arrive.
absolutely.
They get to the stage. I communicate with them. I let them know which riser. If there's a drummer, hey, those are your drum sets. Jump right on, get comfortable, get situated. I put the band. I want the band first. I want the main, the back guys in with their gear, get comfortable, get set. Because anything they can do ahead of time helps us.
Right,
Uh, so once that's situated, we have an artist on stage. The drummers are 100%. We're on band three at that point
mm,
of them getting there or just arriving. Okay, get set up. So it's just a rotation. We thought we would have had stage left for some space for risers. I think that's why we ran into some trouble. But we only had stage right, and it was just a little piece, with a dock, and so we fit as much as we can. All risers butted up to each other.
right,
Uh, went ahead, I labeled everything. I want, which riser, what belongs to what it is. So when they arrive, I'm pointing out right away. This is this band. That's this drums belongs to this guy and this guy without looking at my paperwork, right?
right.
And that's another thing. All that stuff you guys we have with advancing, I print out everything, and I have a it's pretty much my checklist and my go-to throughout the day. You always see some paperwork with me. You know,
Hmm.
if it's by the end of the day it's all crumbled up or something, it's been worked on all day. But
Right.
it's I have my checklist and what's happening. Once the act is on stage or I'm really done setting up the next acts, I'm always looking what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next. We got thrown in with DJ Khaled that
Yeah. Yeah.
want to be on the changeover.
Right.
So okay, this is what we got. Here's just a mic, and all right, here we go. We're gonna be
Right.
working on you. I told his team like, all right, don't step back, stay on the downstage. Don't
Right.
dancing around because there's a lot of stuff happening right behind you.
Right.
So yeah, but we made it happen, man.
Yeah, that one was funny. I remember when I got a call on the radio and they said, "Reds, you need to come to the production office immediately." So I can't remember who was on stage, but I said, "Okay." I left that cash at the monitor desk and I'm like, "Listen, I gotta run to the production office." I run to the production office and they were like, "All right, so DJ Khaled just called and he wants to come perform." And Steve said yes. So I'm like, "Okay, great. We got a DJ set up off to the side for the house DJ that plays in between, each act. So we're good to go." They're like, "No, you don't understand. Like, he's gonna be like on stage." I'm like, "When?" They're like, "In the changeover." I'm like, "What?" So yeah, no, that was interesting. But again, like, people put faith in you to make it happen, and again, once again, thanks to a great team. Um, we're able to do that. I'm going to pause here on the KFS topic and take some questions. Um, so John asked, how much of a role does safety play in your job? Because you just talked a little bit about, letting artists know that, stuff is happening behind. I think the first thing we do when we walk in the morning, I mean, it's good to be in a venue where you can trust the riggers and it's a really experienced crew. But talk a little bit about the safety aspect of your job.
Right. So it's 100%, man. It's actually the first thing I do when I walk in. Uh, Part of my toolkit and stuff that I could probably discuss going into it, but like I always have a certain set of items with me pertaining to the gig, and one of it is high vis tape and so forth like that. I do a full walk around, having knowledge now with rigging and structure and so forth, all the way down to the audience vibe. I'll walk a full stage. My first thing I walk in, I walk the stage. I look at everything. I look at uneven truss, or maybe if there's any bolts that are on the ground, by accident. Trying to figure out every little detail, all the way to the barricades. I walk and you see me putting my hands on those barricades, see if they're moving, if there's any gaps, if there's anything loose. I do a full walkthrough all the way around. It's safety is 100%. I don't want anyone, artist to crew to audience, of course. So yeah, it's dire. It's my first thing. Before I even tackle any production, I make sure our work environment is safe.
Right. Right. And I'm sure again artists appreciate that, right? Like it's always good because I also work on the artist side going into a situation where that a stage manager is or a production manager is really on top of the ball with that stuff
Hmm.
is good. I mean, and I can think of experiences I've had. The worst thing you can have is a messy stage because that impacts
Right.
safety. With how cables are run, where they're run. When I walk in, I also walk the stage as the production manager for the artist because that's the first thing I do. Is I get up on stage, I walk the stage, I walk down the barricade line to front of house because I want to make sure my front of house guys are my lighting and audio guys are good. If in case of emergency they have a path out. Those are things that we talk about nowadays. It's a reality of the industry that we're in nowadays. And so when you meet a stage manager, you come across a stage manager that's already on top of those things, man, it puts your mind at ease. I can think of the crew Showmakers did, where the stage management team for Diriyah season in Saudi Arabia, man, like that stage is probably the most spotless I've ever seen. And trust me, I've seen some good ones. Our KFS stage was as good as it gets, but man, they had it was like you couldn't see. I was wondering where the cables were. Like it was that clean. It's like what? Where are the cables? Like how is everything wireless? Like it was amazing. So and I think that's that's paramount. I think safety is important. You know that high vis tape is incredibly important. I work for artists that are not as young as they used to be, and their their eyesight maybe not as Shaggy would kill me if you heard me say this, but we put tape on the edge of the stage because
Yep.
a lot of it too is even for younger artists. I mean, when you're in the moment performing and you're jumping around, dancing around the stage, you're not looking down at the edge of the stage, and in the dark you can't see the edge of that stage, right? So little things like making sure there's high vis tape across the front edge of the stage, and I cringe every time I see a video of an artist falling off the stage. Like to me, that's every time I see that I go, well, there goes another fired stage manager, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Even worse when you get into pyro.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is my 6 year, 7 year with Rolling Loud, and we have pyro on every stage. There's literally no B stage. Every stage is a main stage, and it's
Hmm.
full on pyrotechnics, and that's a whole other discussion, with safety and so forth, and dealing with fire marshals and so forth. But yeah, man, you know, I go ahead. I literally put high vis tape on the edge of risers. I walk to the point of where you got to feel also like you got to back up the artist on stage too. So, all right, is he going to run around? Is he going to bump into this item? You know, is there a low hangs situation somewhere? Okay, let's make sure that's safe. Speaking with security, it's another thing with stage managing, recognizing your the type of artist you have on stage, the type of crowd that's being involved, and situation that may arise. So I will have meetings with security constantly. I'll always check on that too. That's part of my thing. Besides doing changeovers and stuff, I'm constantly looking at everything. I'm looking at where's security at, where are they at the right place that I told them that we agreed upon. Where's is you know is there or is there cables that they're a little weird that someone missed because we're such in a rush of doing changeovers. So there's little walkthroughs I do even right after a changeover. Once we get gear on stage, the movements, I give it to you guys because I trust you guys. That's part of it. I do my other walkthrough of safety for that set because through a busy day, you may forget or you may miss certain things. You're not looking for that because you're still concentrating. We need to get this artist up. So it's a constant thing throughout the day, not just the beginning. Actually, I should mention.
Right. And so there's another question I'm going to save regarding your toolkit, but further to the topic of safety, and you brought up security. Nowadays, and especially post the Las Vegas shooting
Right.
that happened at the festival there, most major festivals now, and I'm sure there's some more expected changes coming with post COVID. But after that Las Vegas shooting, most festivals have now implemented evacuation procedures and what to do in the case of an active shooter and stuff like that. Which, as production managers for the artists, we get a briefing from the stage manager normally when we get there. Same thing in Saudi Arabia. There is a whole protocol for a show stoppage. And different color cards that the security guy would come up with, the head of security, whether it be a warning card or a show stoppage or right? How has that changed and impacted your workflow as a stage manager in the, preparing for how you go through this day? And if there's what are the conversations like with your crew leading up to that point and preparing everybody in the case of something tragic like that happening?
Right. So with the site team and festival organizations, or even clubs or venue owners, managers, promoters, and so forth, you come up with a plan of action. Uh, we've gotten, I'm part of the Event Safety Alliance as well, which talks a lot about that. But yeah, you come up with your initial plan. Um, If it's a festival, you have a container site or a trailer site, immediate evacuation spot you can go to. You address that. You address the flow of what actually stops the show. Also comes down to weather too. Almost the same thing too, of different levels, right? If you have 40 miles per hour wind, what do you do?
Right.
What's an actual show stoppage? I actually address that to artists, stage manager, production manager, whoever's coming with them to represent them. I actually pull them aside. I try to get the artist involved with that little meeting, just so it's very important that they know. So I try to get that information very dire to them, especially with active shooter situation or what an actual show stoppage is. It's I do that conversation more so on the festival site, um, because there's so much going on. I want to make sure that they're comfortable that we have a plan of safety if something happens. Um, Venues and so forth like that, it's not so spread across, so you can kind of just have that little quick meeting with the management, so you go over the plan, but you always have a plan in every situation, and a go-to not only your artists, but where your crew can go to and where the stage hands are at, and you try to have that safety plan of if something happens, everything from weather to a bad situation. So yeah.
Hmm. And how much for people who watch this that are festival goers, not necessarily artists? I mean, we obviously things are changing now, and we can't expect after things like COVID-19 for things to be the same. Has any conversation started already in regards to how things will be? I know for us, we were in the UK on tour when the breakout started, and venues immediately, even before, and I guess that's for peace of mind for those watching who wonder if things will go back to normal. Even before government stepped up and had lockdowns, the venues were taking their own precautions. Like when we went into the O2, they completely locked down backstage. Nobody was able to, like, it was only tour personnel. They really did a good job of keeping us safe, and we all came home healthy. Came back to our families safe after the tour. We got back on the 13th of March, so we're talking about right at the beginning of the pandemic breakout. And I can tell you, having to walk through an airport while London Heathrow was pretty much a ghost town, but having to walk through it. The last place you wanted to be was in an airplane with people when COVID just started to really spread. So, what's the conversation like now? What can we, if anything has been said so far, look forward to post COVID-19?
Yeah, yeah. There's been a communication, of course. I've been sitting with a lot of meetings with that as well, guys from Live Nation and so forth. But yeah, it's we know there's gonna be longer lines, and so we're getting into there because we're looking at the venues to implement their safety, right? Which is be able to check if it's wash stations everywhere when they're coming in, temperature checks, and so forth, making sure they're clean. Um, they're with the crew end, same thing. Social distancing on a crew end is very difficult. But one thing we can implement is make sure, hey, be honest that you're not sick coming to work. Um, Make sure you guys are cleaning yourselves. Like you know, baby you is saying wash your hands, but hey, make sure you guys are safe. With the local crews coming in, it's going to be more conversations with those crew chiefs and checking everyone. I think it's going to be a little more. We need extra time on our day, our normal days, right? I
Right.
think the load-in times are going to be added because we need to have these precautions and this time put in for safety on this. It is going to be a new norm. I think that reference has been thrown around a lot, but you start seeing, yeah, when the crew arrives, okay, is the shot, have they cleaned all the gear before they went out? When they arrive, okay, everyone has gloves, everyone has masks, you break in
Right.
full. All right, hey, wash your hands. We make it's like almost going to be a baby situation. We have to have all right, you guys can't leave this section or enter this section without you doing this.
Right.
So it's going to be a lot of that happening. You know,
Yeah. And I mean, for us, we already implemented stuff prior to COVID that we would do. And we always carry our own microphone capsules. But even while we were in the UK, man, I washed my hands so much when I got on the airplane, my hands were cracked because I didn't have like I ran out of lotion like the last few days, and my hands were so dry from just washing it. Like every I'd touch something and wash my hands or use like hand sanitizer. You know what I mean? But definitely for crews. Wipe down your microphones. If anything that's shared, you definitely want to wipe your
yeah,
microphones down. Dean and I always have like a hand sanitizer sort of attached to our backpack. I've been carrying one on my backpack for a while. So yeah, wipe down the microphones. Wipe down. I would wipe down mic stands. Every night before I put that mic stand out, I'd wipe down that entire mic stand with an antibacterial wipe. Just anything that would be shared and any area that would be touched.
yeah.
And you
You
just
can
got to really focus on keeping yourself healthy. You know.
right. You can easily see a changeover where, okay, the gear, backline gear gets put on stage, and then I'm going to have a stagehand with wipes and so forth. Hey, I need these keyboards wiped down. I need this wiped down. I need this wiped down before the artist gets in there. So it's like going to be like, you're going to see a lot of extra cleaning going on. There's going to be an added job for our changeovers or an added,
Right.
prep.
Right. Right. But then, yeah, as you said, definitely has to be factored in for sure. So let's
Yeah.
take a few more questions. John has a really good question again. What's the top five tools every stage manager should have? What should be in your toolbox?
Oh, yeah. Right. So coffin key, because it always goes missing, or production. I don't rely on it. I always have a coffin key with me. I have drum keys with me. I have. It, I also plan it on depends on the gig too.
Right.
Uh, this jazz tour I was about to go on, I had brushes. I had an extra pair of brushes. There's
Yeah.
three members that approached me and said they forgot their brushes. You became the hero. You
Right.
deal with a corporate site. You have a lot of video going on. I have video converters. I have
Nice.
a pack extra of that. I have turnarounds with me. I have groundless with me. It's every kind of situation you can think you could probably run into. And I've added through the years, as you run into a situation, man, I wish I had that. Well, guess what? It's part of the kit now. But yeah, besides my Pelican, yeah, I do have a mini printer and all that kind of stuff where if an artist needs something printed out right away, I don't have time to run across wherever location to get an item. They can use that. But yeah, for tools for the stage, yeah, simple things, man. Drum keys, it's just the things that you notice people asking for a lot. I try to have, of course, spike tape, tape, gaff. Um, I try to have my backpack. It looks big, but there's really a lot of tools in it, a lot of gear that I need for my show day.
Right.
Uh, I try to do the backpack then because it's very quick. The Pelican will stay in the production office, but that'll be mainly just for office stuff, right?
Right.
But immediate tools to go to grab real quick will be in my backpack all the time.
Nice. Having tons. That's another inside joke for Dav. Having tons of gaff tape is 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 important.
Well,
Um,
I'm using a lot of it, so I try to have my own, man. I
yeah.
go like different spike tape, of course, that you need for
Right.
multiple. So I have
Right.
I have my color sheet, what I decide to make for the day. I'd be like, so that's posted up. So if a guy wants to know what's that, I try to, of course, Sharpies. I kind of for Sharpies,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes a monitor engineer comes up to me, hey man, I need a Sharpie, or a
Right.
patch, I need a Sharpie.
Yeah. Exactly. So let me ask you this as we wrap up. Drew has a good question here. It says, as a musician and someone who understands stage setups, is it preferred to try and help or question bad stage hands, or should they just stand there and let everything flop?
No, I definitely speak up because you can't let a bad thing keep going, right? How are they going to learn?
Right.
So I educate a lot. I try to pull them aside and be like, hey man, I understand, this, but here, just this is the reason why we need to do this correctly. If they want to take it and put it and implement on their own to get better, that's great. If they don't care, well, guess what? That stagehand is not coming back if I see that repetitive. If a
Right.
guy love his job like we all do and making that stage and that show 100%, then I'm sorry, this industry is not for you. And I
Right.
a lot of stagehands. Like I said, I have my own company now. I weed through a lot, but we try to have some really solid people that knows and want to be educated. So don't
Right.
ever feel bad that you want to say something, because what if that person couldn't do something and does more damage?
Right. And ultimately, as the touring act, your show, you can't allow your show to be derailed by somebody else. I mean, it definitely is a collaborative effort. I always try to personally, as a production manager, and Drew has toured with me, so he's seen me do this. I will personally go to each stagehand and go to the stage manager once we're done our set, if we have time, just to
Mm.
say thank you, just to be like, hey, thanks
Oh,
guys, appreciate it,
yeah.
because honestly, when you do have a seamless changeover and a good show like that, it makes your life so much easier. But in those instances when you do have a bad crew, or a crew that's not up to standard, you can allow that to derail your show for sure, because ultimately the artist doesn't care. Shaggy doesn't care if the crew is bad. The buck stops with me, right? Like it's my
Yeah,
job, and my job's got to get done at
right.
the end of the day. So we'll kind of wrap up with this. And once again, Ash, I want to thank you for taking the time out to join
Uh,
and always be willing to share.
yeah, of course.
It's huge. But what would you say to people who are trying to get into the industry? Maybe they see themselves one day having a career as a stage manager. What are some key things they need to focus on, and what should they be doing with their time right now to develop the skills that they'll need to ultimately one day have a successful career like yourself?
Yeah, education. Try to get with everything. I'm paying attention to you, Reds. That with listening to your program as well, learning more stuff. Even with microphones, you talked about. You had that EPA information the other
Hmm.
day. Just learning more items that need it into my skill set. So recognize things that you don't know about. Don't be afraid of it, and just learn. Just try to educate, ask the questions, getting into it. Stage man, try to learn everything possible. You know,
Right.
if it's advancing and so forth, that could be a whole other couple hours of information right there. But learn every aspect of the industry, and make sure it's something you love, because that's at the end of the day. I'm always with a smile on my face, hard day or not. That's you got to make sure you love this.
Yeah, for sure. And I thought, like, I remember after Kaya I walked back. I walked over to the hotel, which is really not a long walk, but I was struggling to get back to the Intercontinental because I'd been on my feet all day. But man, I wouldn't trade that for the world, because after executing such an excellent show, an excellent festival, the feeling, the rewarding feeling, the gratifying feeling is
Right.
unlike anything else. So I think definitely, I say to people all the time, if you're gonna get into the music industry simply for money, you're not gonna last long.
Nope.
You gotta love this, because sometimes it seems like the work that you're putting in is not, the compensation is not equal to the effort. But when you see the look on people's faces, when you hear the roar of the crowd when the artist goes on stage, when sometimes you're walking out of the venue, and you walk past people and you hear them talking. And I remember we were up with Stephen Marley in Columbus, and I was walking out from backstage, walking around to the merch area to grab something from Eddie, and I heard a lady on the phone with her friend, and she said, "I told you you should have come. This is the best show I've ever been to in my life." And for me, that was worth the tour for me. If they said to me I wasn't gonna get paid for the rest of the tour, I was like, man, I'm in. So yeah, definitely love it.
If that moment, so you take, if you have a quick moment on stage while that headliner act is on, and you take a step back, you look out, side stage out there, you see that crowd going, cheering for their favorite songs, and
Yeah,
they feel that bass on stage, everything, it just kind of comes in and you just take it all in. And then, you seeing you have an amazing crew and everything, everyone having a great time. Artists, they're having, this is a great show. And you guys, they come out, thank you as well.
Yeah.
It makes 100%, man.
Yeah. It was funny. And I know time's up and we gotta go, but I'll share this one last story. At Pitbull, when he got off stage, and he was leaving, he stopped
Yeah.
at to everybody. He stopped by you. He was walking past me and he grabbed me over. He said, "Listen, man, incredible." And when you have an artist notice the job that you're doing, man, it makes it that much better, that much sweeter. Yeah. So, hey, listen,
Yep.
man, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, bro. I don't take it for granted that you come on and share with my viewers, and I'm sure everybody watching has taken away a lot of great information from today, and we'll talk soon. Hopefully, we get to work together again very soon, my friend.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Thank you guys. And you're welcome to continue asking the questions. I'm always
Yeah.
here. So no problem.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And everybody watching, hit me up, jasonreynoldsproaudio.com. Like I said, we are going to do a panel masterclass on stage management, production management. We're going to get Dav in there on that panel to answer questions about patching and festival patching. Dav's session was very popular, and we had a lot of questions come up out of that. So we're going to bring all these panelists back so we can get together and share some more information. Check it out, patreon.com/Jason Reynolds Pro Audio. And thanks again for watching. Join me next Wednesday. So we're off for the weekend. We're Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I believe next Wednesday I got Tim Hibbert, who is the front of house engineer for Cardi B. Yeah, he's on Wednesday, and he also does monitors for Babyface. So extremely experienced guy and a good friend of mine. So looking forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday.